Well, Mr. Speaker, I would close my remarks by saying that I rise in strong support of this resolution, and I'd like to add my voice to others grateful for the sacrifices so many Americans made to protect the freedom of South Korea, and again to acknowledge the four members of this House, Congressman Charlie Rangel, John Conyers, Sam Johnson, Howard Coble, the veterans of that war, to thank them for their service in the armed forces, and to commend Congressman Rangel for offering this resolution here on the 60th anniversary of this special relationship that we have with South Korea. We recall that 22 nations came together to defend the Republic of Korea, and fighting stopped 3 years later with an armistice that still remains in place. 5.7 million Americans served during that conflict, and as noted, the casualties were 56,000 if you count those missing and presumed dead, and over 100,000 Americans wounded in that war. 140,000 South Koreans killed in action, and many of whom fought side by side with American forces for the cause of freedom. But when you calculate the more than 3 million Korean civilians killed in that conflict, you begin to appreciate the enormity of the human loss. The heroic deeds of these servicemen, both Korean and American, laid the foundation for that alliance that we speak of here that has lasted some 60 years, but also brought relative stability, as Mr. Rangel pointed out, to Northeast Asia, and certainly laid that foundation for the prosperity that we see in Seoul and around the country today. Yet Korea remains a divided peninsula. This is a calamity for the Korean people. The United States and South Korea have spent much of the last 20 years offering to engage North Korea with aid, with trade, with diplomacy, and all of these initiatives, unfortunately, have failed. And the North Korean response, besides its aggressive behavior towards South Korea, the regime there continues to develop nuclear weapons, to test missiles, to supply weapons to countries like Iran and Syria. Mr. Chairman, we've tried many strategies. I think only one has worked, really, and that was financial pressure. I recall in 2005 when an Undersecretary of the Treasury caught North Korea counterfeiting $100 bills. And so what he did was use the power of the U.S. financial system to cut off Kim Jong-il's access to his vast offshore wealth. And while the North Korean people were starving at the time, as you know, the country's dictator had billions of dollars stashed away in foreign banks. Suddenly, he did not have access anymore to that money when the sanctions were put on the Banco Delta Asia. And blocking those accounts denied Kim Jong-il the cash he needed to sustain that vast police state, to sustain that million-man army, to pay for his nuclear weapons and his luxurious lifestyle. And for a while, the world had his attention. For a while, he wanted to come back to the table. I think that approach worked. I suspect North Korea will only change when it's forced to change. And I think we must resurrect a successful strategy of financial pressure. But, Mr. Speaker, today what we dedicate ourselves to is recognizing the 60th anniversary of the Armistice Agreement of the Korean War. And importantly, this resolution not only honors the service and sacrifices of the members of the armed forces, but it also reaffirms our commitment to the U.S.-Korea alliance. And this resolution sends a message that the U.S. goal remains that which thousands of Americans, including 4 of our members, fought for. That goal remains peace on the Korean Peninsula. I urge my colleagues to support this resolution, and I yield back the balance of my time, Mr. Speaker.